My wife betrayed me by sleeping with her boss, and now she's trying to claim half of our $400, $0 house and a $200, $0 inheritance, even though I caught her cheating and have proof. I never imagined she'd fight me for everything, especially after everything she did. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy to catch his wife cheating, especially not in such a blatant, obvious way. It's like the universe decided to throw a punch when I was least expecting it. One day, I was just going about my usual routine, trying to ignore the nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right with. We'd been married for about 7 years, and honestly, things had started to feel off. She'd become more distant, less interested in the little things that used to make our marriage work. I chalked it up to stress at work or maybe just getting comfortable, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. Then out of nowhere, I find myself snooping through her phone. I don't normally do that, but I'd noticed her hiding her screen more often, texting late at night, and she was just so defensive whenever I asked about her day. I guess the tension finally got to me. I opened her messages when she was in the shower, stupid, I know, but I felt like I had to see what was really going on. That's when I saw it, a string of texts between her and her boss, Mark. They weren't just friendly chats, they were flirty, suggestive, and downright inappropriate. Words like "can't wait to see you tonight," "miss you," and "we'll be careful" made my stomach turn. At first, I couldn't believe it. I read the messages over and over, trying to convince myself it was some kind of joke, a misunderstanding, but there was no denying it. My wife, my partner, the woman I trusted with my life, was sleeping with her boss. Mark was a guy I'd always thought of as decent, professional even, but clearly, he was just as much a snake as. The worst part was how brazen she was about it, the way she lied when I confronted her, trying to deny everything even after I showed her the messages. Her face went red with anger and she told me I was paranoid, jealous, imagining things. Said I was overreacting, that I was crazy for thinking she'd cheat on me with someone like Mark. I couldn't believe her lies. I had proof, screenshots, her own words, but she just kept spinning her web of bullshit. She told me I was being ridiculous, that I was insecure, that she loved me and only me. But I saw the way she looked at Mark when she thought I wasn't paying attention, the way she'd sneak off to her phone when she thought I wasn't watching. It was all there, clear as day. Still, she insisted she was innocent, that Mark was just a work friend, and that I should trust her. That was the moment I realized I was in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The betrayal hit hard. It's a strange thing. At first I felt shock, a numbness that made it hard to breathe. Then came the anger, boiling and uncontrollable. How could she do this? How could she lie so easily, knowing I had the evidence? And the audacity she had to try and gaslight me, make me doubt what I saw, what I knew. I felt humiliated, like I'd been played for a fool for years. All those nights I worked late, all those times I thought she was just tired or stressed, she was with him, sleeping with her boss. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a fling or a mistake. It was something more calculated, more deliberate. In the days that followed, I couldn't focus on anything else. I'd sit alone, staring at the wall, trying to process what I'd found out. I started to notice other signs, her phone always being close, her quick exits when I was around, and that strange, defensive attitude whenever I asked her about her whereabouts. I had this sinking feeling she was hiding more than just her affair. And I was right. I found out she'd been secretly talking to Mark about a possible promotion, about their special connection, even as she was pretending to be the perfect wife at home. The worst part is how she's trying to spin it now. She's insisting she's innocent, claiming she only had a work crush, and that I'm blowing everything out of proportion. She says she loves me, that she'd never do anything to hurt me, yet she's fighting me tooth and nail over the house, the inheritance, everything we built together. She's even trying to claim half of our $400, $0 house, even though I have the proof she was cheating, and she's trying to squeeze me for half of an inheritance that's rightfully mine. It's like she's just trying to take everything I worked for, trying to turn things around so she can walk away with a big chunk of my life savings and our home. I never imagined it would come to this. I thought I knew her, thought we had something solid. Turns out, she was just waiting for the right moment to stab me in the back. And now I'm left to pick up the pieces, wondering how I got here and whether I'll ever trust anyone again. The betrayal is raw, the anger still burns, but I'm starting to see that I have to stand my ground. I have the proof. I have the legal rights. But I also have a lot of pain, and that's what's hardest to handle. After I found out about and Mark, everything changed in an instant. I mean, I'd suspected something was off for a while. I'd notice her sneaking around her phone, her defensive attitude when I'd ask about her day, the way she'd brush off my concerns like I was crazy. But seeing those messages, reading her words, that was the moment it all shattered. It was like the floor dropped out from under me. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her and Mark together, and the betrayal flooded back like a tidal wave. I remember sitting on the couch that night, just staring at the phone in my hand, trying to process what I'd discovered. My hands were trembling. I kept thinking, how could she do this? After everything we built, everything we shared. I felt a deep, gnawing anger mixed with heartbreak. I wasn't just angry at her, though that was huge. I was furious at Mark too. How could he do this? How could he betray me, knowing I was her husband? And she kept lying, kept denying it even when I had her own texts. That made it worse. It was like she was trying to gaslight me, make me doubt what I knew was true. The next morning was a blur. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew I needed to approach it carefully. I didn't want her to get ahead of herself or destroy any evidence I might have missed. So I waited until she left for work, then I started digging. I went through her emails, her social media, her bank statements. That's when I found the real kicker. She'd been transferring money into an account she kept secret, and there were hotel receipts from places she'd booked for herself and Mark. I also noticed that she'd been talking about moving out, about getting her own place, even though she kept insisting she loved me and wanted to stay. When I finally sat her down that evening, her face was a mask of false innocence. She tried to spin it, of course. Said she was stressed, that Mark was just a work friend, and that I was overreacting. She looked me straight in the eyes and told me she loved me, that I was the only man she ever wanted, but I wasn't buying it. I showed her the receipts, the texts, the bank statements. Her face turned red, her voice shaky, and she started to get bitchy, throwing out accusations that I was paranoid, that I was controlling, that I was just jealous because I couldn't handle her success at work. It was then that I realized how manipulative she could be. She tried to turn the tables, make me feel guilty, make me doubt my own judgment. She said, "You're making a big deal out of nothing. Mark is just a friend and you're overreacting because you're insecure." Yeah, right, insecure. I had proof. I'd never been so sure of anything in my life. She kept insisting she'd never cheat, that I was crazy for thinking she'd do something so horrible. That's when I saw the true face of her, bitchy, defensive, and completely unwilling to take responsibility. That night I slept on the couch. I couldn't bring myself to be near her. I kept thinking about what this meant for us, for our future. I'd always believed in honesty, loyalty, trust, things that now felt like they'd been ripped away in a matter of days. I felt a mix of sadness, rage, and betrayal that I couldn't quite describe. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all the signs? Was I blind? Was I just too in love to see what was really happening? But then I remembered all those little things she'd brushed off, all the times she dismissed my concerns. That's what cut the deepest. I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. I had to decide what to do next. I had the evidence, and I knew she'd fight me for everything. Our house, the inheritance, even money I'd saved for years. She's already started claiming that she deserves half of the house because she's contributed to it, even though she's been working her job and spending her money on her own stuff while I was the one paying the mortgage, maintaining everything. She's trying to spin it so I look like the bad guy, but I see through her lies now. She's a master manipulator, but I've got proof, and I'm ready to fight for what's mine. The thing is, I never thought I'd be in this situation. I was always the guy who believed in loyalty, who thought marriage was about trust. But now I'm facing the harsh reality that sometimes people you love and trust can turn out to be the biggest betrayals. I'm not just hurt, I'm angry and I'm determined to protect what's mine. I've spoken to a lawyer and I know I have a solid case. She's not getting a dime of that inheritance and she's not walking away with half the house. I want her out and I want justice. It's a mess, but I'm not going down without a fight. If you saw everything I found, if you knew the things she said and did, you'd be furious too. I just wish I had seen the signs earlier, but I guess love makes you blind sometimes. Now I'm trying to pick up the pieces, trying to figure out how to move on from this nightmare. I never thought I'd be sharing all this publicly, but I guess I need to get it off my chest. Thanks for listening. After confronting that evening, everything spiraled even faster than I expected. She was furious, of course, calling me paranoid, accusing me of snooping, saying I was just insecure because she was so successful at work, and that I was controlling her. It's like she had a script ready, a full-blown defense to spin everything into my fault. She kept insisting she never cheated, that Mark was just a business acquaintance, and that I was making a huge deal out of nothing. But I had the evidence, screenshots, bank transfers, hotel receipts, and I wasn't about to let her gaslight me. Her tone got bitchy fast, her voice rising, her eyes narrowing as she tried to dismiss everything. She said I was overreacting, that I was crazy for accusing her without even asking her first. She told me I was insecure, that I was just jealous because she was more successful than me, that I was holding her back. I could see the anger bubbling beneath her words, but also a strange kind of desperation, like she knew she was losing control. That's when I realized just how manipulative she could be. She was trying to turn me into the bad guy, the jealous husband who couldn't handle his wife's ambition. I stayed quiet for a moment, trying to process all her lies. I told her I had enough, that I wasn't going to sit here and listen to her spin stories to cover her tracks. I showed her the proof again, her texts, the bank statements, the hotel bookings, and her face twisted into a sneer. She looked at me like I was a fool, like I was the one ruining everything. Then she started throwing around accusations, saying I was insecure, that I'd always been jealous of her success, that I was just jealous of Mark because he was better looking and more confident. That really pissed me off. She was trying to turn the tables, make me doubt myself, and it was working for a second. But I refused to let her get away with it. I told her I was done playing her game. I explained that I wasn't going to be played for a fool, that I had enough of her lies, her manipulations, and her blatant disrespect. I told her I knew about her affair, and I was going to take action. I knew the legal side of things, how the house was in my name, how the inheritance was separate, and how I had the proof to back everything up. I told her she was fighting a losing battle, and I was prepared to go all the way to protect what's mine. Her reaction was something I didn't expect. She snapped, her bitchy attitude turning into outright hostility. She yelled at me, called me a jealous, insecure loser, and said I'd never find anyone who loved me the way she loved Mark. She said I was a pathetic excuse for a husband, and that I'd never get her to leave or give up what she thought she deserved. Her voice was shrill, her face flushed with anger, and her words were full of venom. I could see she was trying to intimidate me, to scare me into backing down, but I wasn't having it. I told her I'd already spoken to a lawyer and that she wasn't getting anything she didn't legally deserve. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything she said, everything I saw, and how betrayed I felt. I'd always been the stable one in this relationship. I worked hard, paid the mortgage, kept everything running smoothly. And now I was facing the reality that she'd been lying and cheating behind my back for who knows how long. It's like I'd been living in a dream, and now that dream was crashing down around me. I felt a deep sense of loss, not just of my marriage, but of the trust I'd once had in her, in us. How could someone I loved so much turn out to be so manipulative, so dishonest? In the days that followed, I decided I couldn't keep going like this. I had to take control. I started gathering everything, the proof of her affair, the financial documents, the hotel receipts. I contacted a lawyer who specialized in divorce and property disputes. We went over everything and I learned I had a pretty solid case. The house was in my name and I had the receipts to prove she was cheating. The inheritance, that was mine, my family's money, not hers. I knew she'd fight me tooth and nail, claiming she deserved a stake because she'd contributed in some vague way, but I was ready. I was done playing nice. The thing is, I never wanted it to come to this. I loved her, or at least I thought I did. But now I see that love doesn't mean much when betrayal is involved. I have to protect what's mine, and I have to do it. Legally, it's not just about the house or the inheritance. It's about standing up for myself after being humiliated and lied to. I never imagined I'd end up in a situation like this, but here I am. I'm ready to fight for my rights, and I've learned that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes you have to be willing to walk away and rebuild from the ashes. If I could give anyone advice, it would be this: trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, don't ignore it. And if you find proof of betrayal, don't let them manipulate you into doubting yourself. Protect what's yours: your home, your money, your dignity. Because once trust is broken, it's almost impossible to get back. And honestly, I don't see how I can ever look at her the same way again. The legal process moved quickly once I handed over all my evidence. My lawyer told me I had a strong case to keep the house and the inheritance, especially since I could prove infidelity and her attempts to claim half of everything. Still, I knew she'd fight dirty. She's always been manipulative, and now she was desperate. She started pulling out all the stops, lying, twisting facts, even trying to accuse me of abuse, which was absolutely ridiculous. That was her new tactic: paint me as the bad guy so she could get sympathy or at least weaken my case. One day, she showed up at my office unannounced, bitchy and confrontational. Her face was all made up, her tone dripping with false sweetness. She told me I was ruining her life, that she deserved half the house because she'd contributed emotionally, and that I was just a jealous, insecure man who couldn't handle her success. I told her straight that she was full of shit and that I had all the proof I needed. She then started crying, fake tears of course, saying that she loved me and that she'd never cheat if I just trusted her again. But I knew better. I'd seen her texts, her hotel receipts, her secret bank accounts. I wasn't falling for her crocodile tears. That was when I decided to get serious. I wanted her out of the house, and I wanted her to understand she wasn't getting a dime of my money or the house unless the court ordered it. I also started taking steps to protect my inheritance. I had my lawyer draft a settlement that clearly states the house is in my name and that the inheritance is separate. Lawyer tried to argue that she'd contributed emotionally and that she deserved a share, but I had all the receipts and bank statements showing she'd been financially cheating me, spending money on her trips and her work expenses. I told her she was wasting her time. She wasn't going to get her hands on my assets. Meanwhile, his attitude kept deteriorating. She became more hostile, more bitchy, and tried to turn the kids against me. She said I was trying to ruin her, that I was jealous of her success, and that I was a terrible husband who didn't appreciate her. I just kept my distance, knowing that her words were just another way to manipulate the situation. I refused to get into a shouting match or let her gaslight me again. I was done being the nice guy, done pretending everything was fine. I knew what I had to do, and I was prepared to fight for it. One thing I didn't expect was how quickly she'd escalate her threats. She started saying she'd take me to court, claimed she deserved half of everything, and even accused me of hiding assets. I knew her game. She wanted to scare me into giving her more, or maybe just to make herself feel like she was winning. But I stayed calm. I told her I had nothing to hide, that I was going to fight her every step of the way, and that she'd regret trying to take what wasn't hers. I also made sure to document every interaction, texts, emails, even her phone calls, so I'd have everything if the court needed proof. The most surprising thing was her reaction when I told her I was going to take her to court for full custody of the kids if she kept up her manipulative tactics. Her bitchy attitude shifted into panic. She started crying again, not fake tears this time, and begged me to work things out. I just looked at her and said, "You've already crossed the line. I'm done playing games. If you want to fight over the house and the inheritance, then I'll see you in court." That was the last straw. I knew I was serious now. No more Mr. Nice Guy. I was ready to stand up for myself, for my rights, and for my peace of mind. Throughout all this, I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief because I finally knew the truth and I'd taken steps to protect myself. Anger because I'd been betrayed so badly, especially by who I thought loved me. I kept asking myself how she could be so manipulative, so bitchy, so selfish. But at the same time, I knew I had to stay focused. I couldn't let her drag me down into her chaos. I had to be smart, patient, and relentless if I wanted to win this fight. Looking back, I realize how much I underestimated her. I thought I knew her, but she proved me wrong. She's a master at lying and twisting facts to her advantage, and I was just another pawn in her game. Still, I've learned a lot from this experience, about trust, about standing up for myself, and about how people can surprise you in the worst ways. I don't regret confronting her or fighting for what's mine. If anything, I feel more determined than ever to see this through. I want her to understand that betrayal has consequences, and I won't be the one to lose everything I've worked so hard for. The court date finally arrived after months of back and forth, legal filings, and endless meetings with my lawyer. Honestly, I was exhausted, but also relieved that I was finally going to get some clarity. Of course, was trying every trick in the book. She brought her own lawyer, and her tone was just as bitchy and manipulative as ever. She kept insisting she was entitled to half the house and the inheritance, claiming she'd contributed emotionally, and that she deserved her fair share. She looked at me with that sneering expression like she thought she'd already won, but I wasn't about to let her get away with it. The courtroom was tense, filled with that stiff, formal atmosphere you see in movies. Sat there, trying to look innocent but failing miserably. Her lawyer argued that she was an equal partner and that her contributions, whatever she meant by that, should be recognized. I sat there quietly, listening, knowing I had all the proof to back up my case. My lawyer laid out everything, proof of her affair, her secret bank accounts, the hotel receipts, the transfer of funds, and made it clear that she was trying to manipulate the system to her advantage. When it was my turn to speak, I kept it straightforward. I told the court that had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I presented the evidence, explained how I had been, and emphasized that I had always been the one paying the mortgage, maintaining the house, and supporting her. I made it clear that the house was in my name, that I had the legal right to it, and that the inheritance was entirely mine, money I had worked hard for and that she had no claim to. I also pointed out how she'd been secretly talking to Mark about her career advancement, which was proof she'd been planning her betrayal for some time. As I spoke, his face turned red with fury. She tried to interrupt, but the judge told her to wait her turn. Her lawyer was trying to argue that she deserved a fair division, but I knew the law was on my side. The judge listened carefully, reviewing all the evidence, and I could see her flipping through the documents with a critical eye. I felt a surge of relief when the judge finally looked up and made her ruling. She ordered that the house stay in my name and that would not receive any part of the inheritance. She also granted me full custody of the kids, citing ongoing manipulative behavior and her infidelity as reasons for concern. His lawyer immediately announced they appeal, but I knew that was just her way of stalling. I felt a sense of victory, but also exhaustion. This wasn't over yet, but I'd taken a big step toward reclaiming my life. After the court hearing, stormed out bitchy and furious, shouting at me that I was destroying her life, that I was a horrible husband and that she'd make me pay. I just watched her leave, feeling a strange mix of anger and relief. That woman had tried to take everything from me, my house, my savings, my peace of mind, and she'd failed. I knew she'd keep fighting, she'd try to manipulate the system, but I was prepared for that. I had my proof, my lawyer, and the law on my side. In the days that followed, I focused on rebuilding. I moved out of the house, finding a new place to start fresh. I cut all contact with, knowing she'd only try to manipulate me further if I let her. I also started the process of dividing my assets properly, making sure I protected everything I'd worked so hard for. It was a tough, emotionally draining experience, but deep down, I felt a weight lift. I finally felt like I was taking control of my life again. Looking back, I realize how much I underestimated her. I thought I knew her, but her betrayal showed me a side I never expected. It's hard to admit, but I've learned that trust can be broken in an instant, and sometimes you have to fight to protect what's yours. I wish I could say I'm completely over it, but honestly, I'm still healing. Still, I'm proud I stood my ground. I fought for my rights, for my dignity, and I won. That's what really matters now. I've learned that sometimes love isn't enough, especially when it's built on lies. And moving forward, I'll be more cautious about who I let into my life. The scars will fade, but the lessons will stay with me forever. Now that everything's settled legally, I feel like I've finally started to breathe again. The house is sold, the inheritance is secure, and I've moved into a place where I can finally think clearly without her shadow hanging over me. It's been a brutal journey, one I never expected to take, especially not with someone I loved so deeply. But looking back, I realize how crucial it was to stand my ground, even when she tried to manipulate and lie her way out of everything. I learned that betrayal cuts deep, but it also reveals the true character of the person you thought you knew. Since the divorce, I've been focusing on rebuilding my life. I started going to therapy, not just to handle the pain of the betrayal, but to rebuild my sense of self. It's strange how someone you trust can turn out to be a stranger, how love can turn into anger and disappointment so quickly. But I've learned to forgive myself for trusting too easily, for ignoring the signs, for believing in a fairy tale that was never real. Forgiveness isn't about her. It's about freeing myself from the bitterness that could consume me if I let it. I also made a conscious decision to cut out toxic people and surround myself with those who genuinely care. It's been a hard lesson, but I now see that trust has to be earned, and love has to be built on honesty. I've started dating again cautiously, but I refuse to rush into anything. I want someone who values loyalty, transparency, and respect, something clearly couldn't offer. The biggest thing I've realized is how much I've grown from this experience. It's shown me the importance of standing up for myself, of not tolerating lies or manipulation, and of protecting what's mine. I've become more assertive, more aware of red flags, and more cautious about trusting blindly. And honestly, I feel a lot stronger than I did before. I used to think love was about sacrificing everything, but now I know it's about mutual respect and honesty. Most importantly, I've learned that betrayal doesn't define me. I'm still the same person who believed in love and loyalty, but I'm also someone who can survive the worst and come out stronger. I see now that the real victory isn't just in winning the legal battle, but in reclaiming my dignity and peace of mind. Attempt to take everything from me failed, not just because I fought for what was right, but because I refused to let her destroy who I am. To anyone out there going through something similar, trust your instincts, gather your proof, and don't be afraid to stand your ground. People can surprise you in the worst ways, but your strength lies in how you respond. Don't let betrayal define your story. Make it your comeback. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing is your own happiness and integrity. And I know now, without a doubt, that I'll be okay. Better than okay, I'll be stronger than I ever thought possible.